Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the insights from the sources you share with us. Today, we're plunging into, well, a truly massive part of the global economy, the meat and poultry market. It's one of those things, it impacts almost everyone every day, but maybe we don't always grasp the sheer scale of it. So our mission today, give you that shortcut. We'll unpack the size, look at what's driving the frankly impressive growth, and explore the really fascinating differences across regions. And all this comes from the Global Meat and Poultry Market Overview to 2033 report by Cognitive Market Research. Think of it as our guide.
Absolutely. And just to be clear what we mean by market, we're covering a huge range here. You've got your staples like beef, pork, chicken, turkey, but also lamb and all the processed stuff too. These are fundamental food sources across the globe, really essential.
Okay, let's unpack this then. You said massive, and the report, well, the numbers really back that up. We're not just talking big.
No, not at all. Get this. Back in 2021, the market was valued at $1,288.43 billion. So nearly $1.3 trillion.
$1.3 trillion, just for meat and poultry.
Exactly. And it's not slowing down. The estimate for 2025 is over $1.5 trillion. That's $1,581 billion, to be precise. And then looking further out to 2033, it's projected to climb past $2,380 billion. So almost $2.4 trillion. Yeah. The compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, is pegged at about 5.25% during that forecast period, which is, pretty robust growth for such a large sector.
So 5.25% year on year. That's significant.
Yeah.
So what's fueling this? It can just be population growth alone, surely.
Well, population growth is definitely a bedrock factor, more mouths to feed globally. But it's more complex. A huge driver is rising protein demand, particularly as incomes increase in many developing economies. People are shifting dietary patterns, eating more protein.
Why the dietary shift?
And then there's technology, big advancements in processing, packaging, cold chain logistics. It all makes meat more available, safer, and lasts longer. It expands the market reach significantly.
And the report mentioned something interesting about consumer trends too, didn't it? About organic and sustainable options.
Yes, that's a key point. There's a growing segment of consumers very interested in organic, antibiotic-free, sustainably sourced products. So it's not just about quantity anymore. Quality, ethics, sustainability. These are increasingly shaping demand, particularly in developed economies, but we see hints elsewhere too.
So both developed and developing markets are pushing this growth, just maybe in different ways.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, this is where I think it gets really interesting, breaking it down by region. Because the picture isn't uniform at all, is it?
Not at all. There are definite powerhouses and some really dynamic growth areas emerging.
So let's start with the current leader, North America.
That's right. North America is the giant currently. In 2021, its market was valued at over $510 billion.
$500 billion.
Yeah. And at the projection for 2033, it's expected to grow to roughly $909 billion. Almost $910 billion.
Huge. And within North America, the U.S. dominates, I assume.
Overwhelmingly, the U.S. accounted for about $392 billion of that 2021 figure.
Wow.
And it's projected to reach nearly $685 billion by 2033.
Okay. What about Canada and Mexico? Are they significant players too?
They are indeed. Canada started at around $57–58 billion in 2021 and is projected to hit about $113 billion. Mexico is similar, starting around $60 billion and projected to reach about $112 billion by 2033. So solid growth across the board there.
Right. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, still a massive market, right?
Absolutely. Very significant and diverse. Europe's total in 2021 was around $373.6 billion. And looking ahead to 2033, the projection is for that to reach over $664 billion.
Okay, and who are the big players within Europe?
Germany leads the pack. It was at about $64.5 billion in 2021 and is forecast to grow to almost $108 billion. Okay. Then you have the UK, quite significant, moving from roughly $48 billion to nearly $80 billion. Russia is also a major player. Similar numbers to the UK, around $48 billion projected to grow to over $80 billion.
France, Italy, Spain.
Yep, all substantial. France are around $37 billion, heading towards $75 billion. Italy, starting at about $27.4 billion, projected to get close to $52 billion. And Spain, starting slightly higher than Italy at $28 billion, but projected growth to around $46 billion.
So it's pretty widespread growth then. It's not just the big 4 or 5.
Exactly. The report also notes growth in places like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Luxembourg. It really highlights the broad base of demand across the continent.
Okay, now for the region you mentioned is really surging. Asia Pacific.
Yes, this is the one to watch, definitely. While North America leads now, APAC is showing incredible momentum. It started at about $242 billion in 2021.
Okay.
But the projection for 2033 is nearly $500 billion. $499.4 billion to be exact. It's more than doubling.
Doubling. That's
Yeah.
huge. Who's driving that primarily? China, I assume.
China's a major force, yes. Went from about $75.5 billion in 2021, projected to hit over $146 billion. Japan is also very significant, around $56 billion in 2021, heading towards $108 billion.
Okay, those are big numbers.
But here's what's really fascinating. India.
Ah, okay. What's the story there?
High growth. It started from a lower base, around $37 billion in 2021, but is projected to reach almost $86 billion by 2033. That's more than doubling, a really rapid expansion.
Wow, okay. So that reflects economic changes, dietary shifts.
Precisely. Rising incomes, a growing middle class. It's unlocking huge potential demand.
And the report mentions others too. South Korea, Australia.
Yes, South Korea, Australia, Singapore, Southeast Asia as a whole, Taiwan, they all contribute to that massive regional growth figure. It's a very dynamic area.
Right. Okay, let's hit to South America now. What's the picture there?
Also showing strong growth, though starting from a smaller overall base compared to North America or Europe. The total for South America in 2021 was around $86.3 billion, and it's expected to reach over $176 billion by 2033. So again, more than doubling.
And Brazil leads the way there, I imagine. Big agricultural exporter.
Correct. Brazil is the key player. Started at over $31 billion in 2021, projected to grow to over $62 billion.
Doubling again.
Yeah, it's a consistent theme. Argentina is also significant, about $11.5 billion, growing to nearly $25 billion. And Colombia, too, around $7 billion, growing to over $15 billion. So good growth across key countries.
Okay, nearly there. What about the Middle East and Africa? Often grouped together, but distinct markets, right?
Yes, distinct, but both showing growth potential. Let's take the Middle East first. In 2021, that market was worth roughly $45 billion. The projection for 2033 is over $71 billion. Solid growth.
And the main player there, Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is the largest, yes. Around $14 billion in 2021, projected to grow towards $22 billion. But Turkey, the UAE, Egypt, Qatar, they're all notable contributors as well.
Okay. And finally, Africa. Lots of potential there, often talked about.
Definitely. The market in 2021 was valued at just under $31 million.
Right.
And it's forecast to reach almost $60 billion by 2033. So nearly doubling again.
Consistent theme indeed. Key countries.
South Africa is a major one, projected to grow from about $10.6 billion to over $20 billion. Nigeria is another key market showing strong growth from around $6 billion to over $11 billion. Reflects that increasing urbanization and income growth in parts of the continent.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
So let's try and synthesize. What does this all really mean? We've seen this truly immense scale, multi-trillion-dollar industry, and really dynamic growth across the board, almost everywhere, doubling over the next decade or so. It's just fundamental to global food.
It really is. And the drivers are clear. Population, rising protein demand, technology, but also, crucially, those evolving consumer preferences, that interest in sustainability, organic, antibiotic-free, that's not just a niche anymore. It seems to be becoming a core expectation shaping the future.
Yeah.
And this, well, it raises an important question, doesn't it?
Right, because if this is the trajectory, this massive growth, coupled with this shift towards, let's call it conscious consumption, what happens next? How does the industry adapt? How do we as consumers think about animal protein production and consumption over the next 10 years? What are you going to be watching for as these predictions play out? Something to definitely keep an eye on. Okay, let's unpack this. When you pick up that chicken for dinner maybe, or grill a burger, it's actually far more than just a meal.
It really is. It's a direct connection, isn't it, to this massive and, well, rapidly changing global industry.
Exactly. So today we're embarking on a deep dive. We're looking into the dynamic global meat and poultry market. And our mission, really, for you listening, is to quickly cut through some of the noise.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And understand the crucial drivers, the big hurdles, and also some of the really fascinating innovations shaping what actually ends up on our plates.
And this is all grounded in recent industry analysis. We've got a pretty comprehensive market report here offering some key insights.
Great stuff. Because it's truly fascinating, isn't it, how many different forces are at play?
Oh, definitely. Often competing forces, actually.
Like what?
Well, everything from, what an individual wants for their health, right up to huge geopolitical shifts. It all influences this market.
That's a critical point.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's start there. What's really driving this market forward?
Right.
I mean, the global appetite for protein, that's undeniable, sure. But what's really shifted is which protein seems to be winning and maybe why.
Exactly. So consumers, particularly those really focused on health and fitness, they are prioritizing protein.
For muscle development, weight control, all that.
Yeah, general wellness. But the maybe surprising insight here is how poultry has kind of emerged as the unexpected king.
Poultry. Interesting. Not just because it's cheaper.
Well, affordability and lower fat play a role, sure.
Yeah.
But it's also its incredible versatility that perfectly aligns with this global shift towards hyper-convenient on-the-go meals.
Right.
And we're seeing this accelerate in places like the US, Brazil, India, China, where you have this growing middle class.
Which means more nutritional awareness.
Exactly. And a demand for, quality meat options, often leaner ones.
It's fascinating how deeply our changing lifestyles impact something so fundamental like our food choices.
It really is.
So what specific shifts are we seeing because of, say, urbanization and that rise of on-the-go living?
Well, this lifestyle change, it's really catalyzed a surge in ready-to-cook and ready-to-eat meat products.
So marinated chicken, frozen kebabs, that sort of thing.
Precisely. Even microwavable meat dishes becoming staples in, urban households.
And what makes that possible on a large scale?
What's crucial to enable this is the expansion of cold chain infrastructure.
That whole refrigerated network.
Right. Continuous refrigeration from the slaughterhouse right to the store shelf. And it's not just about keeping things cool. It's fundamental to safely distributing these highly perishable meat products across vast distances.
Allowing that ready-to-eat market to actually flourish.
Exactly. And this is further supported by, the explosion of digital grocery platforms and just the sheer number of convenience stores popping up everywhere.
And who's driving this demand most?
It seems to be younger consumers, working professionals, particularly in big Asia-Pacific cities. Think Bangkok, Jakarta, Delhi. They're truly fueling this, prioritizing speed, nutrition, and convenience.
Okay, so beyond us as individual consumers, there's the HoReCa sector?
Ah, yes. Hotels, restaurants, and catering. A massive player.
Clearly. How are their unique demands, especially around consistency and just sheer volume? How's that shaping the supply chain?
Well, the scaling up of food service establishments, especially in urban areas and tourist spots, has definitely intensified the demand for a consistent, high-quality meat supply.
Makes sense. They need reliability.
Absolutely. And poultry and beef, they particularly dominate menus. Everything from fast food chains and cloud kitchens right up to fine dining and hotel buffets.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Look at the popularity of international cuisines, QSR's quick service restaurants across the Middle East and Southeast Asia.
Right.
That's led to a significant increase in both imported and consumed meat, both processed and raw.
And it's not just rising incomes driving that.
No, it's also those growing food delivery ecosystems. They're creating entirely new avenues for consumption, which just further boosts demand.
Okay, so we've looked at the growth engines.
Yeah.
But every industry has its speed bumps, right?
Absolutely.
And the meat and poultry market is certainly no exception. What are some of the notable restraints maybe holding things back a bit?
Well, this raises a really important question, actually. How do evolving consumer values impact a global industry like this?
You mean things like health concerns?
Exactly. Rising health and ethical concerns. Issues like antibiotic use in livestock, animal welfare standards.
Well, unfortunately, those zoonotic disease outbreaks we hear about, swine flu, avian influenza.
Right. Those have definitely spurred growing skepticism among some consumers.
And then there's the whole plant-based movement.
Yes, and the movement toward flexitarianism, too. That's a growing trend where consumers consciously reduce their meat intake, maybe not cutting it out completely, but reducing.
Alongside more stringent plant-based eating.
Definitely. Particularly among, say, millennials in North America and Western Europe. It's undeniably leading to reduced meat consumption in favor of what they see as more sustainable alternatives.
So transparency becomes key.
Crucial. Transparency, humane rearing conditions, getting those certification labels. These are now major purchase decision factors for a pretty significant chunk of consumers.
That's a profound shift in mindset. And then beyond consumer feelings, there's just the sheer economics of it all. Price volatility, for instance.
You're absolutely right. Feed costs, mainly soy and corn, they directly influence meat production costs.
So any fluctuation.
Any fluctuation, whether it's due to climate change, maybe geopolitical unrest, or trade disputes, it can cause really dramatic swings in meat prices.
We saw that with African swine fever, didn't we?
Starkly, those outbreaks in Asia disrupted pork supply chains globally, sent meat prices soaring. This kind of unpredictability, it really burdens both producers and retailers.
Affects their planning, their profits.
Directly. Inventory planning, profit margins, it makes it all very difficult.
Sounds like a really tricky tightrope walk for businesses involved.
It can be.
And then you add the layers of regulation on top of that.
Absolutely. Stringent regulatory pressures, they further complicate operations.
How so?
Well, compliance with international food safety protocols, specific certifications like halal and kosher, managing those complex cold chain logistics we talked about.
And now environmental regulations too.
Yes, even carbon emission norms require continuous investment. For instance, look at the European Union's Green Deal or regulations about deforestation-linked imports.
So that pushes exporters towards
More sustainable sourcing, lower emission production models, which isn't just about compliance, it often means significantly higher costs.
and forces big changes in the supply chain.
Extensive restructuring, yes,
Yeah.
which then impacts global trade flows.
Wow. Okay. So given all those challenges, it's actually pretty impressive to see the innovation that's still happening.
It really is.
What are some of the key trends you're seeing that are reshaping this market right now?
Well, one strong trend, and this is directly driven by those health-focused consumers we mentioned, the ones seeking transparency and cleaner labels,
Right.
is the emergence of organic, hormone-free, and antibiotic-free meat products.
So you see more of that in stores now.
Definitely. Retail chains, e-commerce platforms, they're offering specialized ranges. Things like free-range chicken, grass-fed beef, meats with traceable origins.
Especially in certain markets.
Yes, particularly in premium urban markets across the US, the UK, and parts of Asia too. And this actually opens up new avenues for smaller, certified producers.
Right. They can cater to those niche segments, probably with higher margins.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense given the consumer shifts we were just discussing. And what about technology? I imagine that's playing a massive transformative role.
Oh, it absolutely. And the real game changer with technology adoption across the supply chain, it isn't just about efficiency.
What is it then?
It's the unprecedented level of trust it can build.
How does that work?
Well, companies are implementing things like blockchain, IoT sensors, AI-powered logistics tools.
To monitor things in real time.
Exactly. Monitor real-time temperatures in the cold chain, optimize delivery routes, and ensure end-to-end traceability. Imagine scanning a QR code on your chicken package.
And seeing its whole journey.
Exactly, knowing its entire journey. That level of transparency, which was once, a distant dream, is now reshaping consumer confidence, thanks to tools like blockchain.
That's powerful.
And these innovations also contribute significantly to reducing food waste, which aligns with those broader ESG objectives.
ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
Right. That framework companies use to assess their performance on sustainability and ethical practices.
Okay. And building on that idea of evolving trust and consumer awareness, we're seeing another, I think, fascinating innovation, the rise of hybrid and plant-based meat alternatives.
Yeah, that's a huge area.
And it's not just new startups.
Yeah.
Big players like Tyson and Cargill, they aren't just sitting back, are they?
Not at all. They're launching blended products that combine traditional meat with plant proteins,
Specifically targeting.
specifically catering to those flexitarian diets we talked about. These products appeal to consumers who want to maybe reduce their environmental impact, but aren't ready to completely give up meat.
Where is this trend strongest?
It seems particularly strong in regions like the US, Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, places where awareness of sustainability and alternative proteins is already pretty high and rapidly increasing.
Right. It's clear then, this whole meat and poultry market, it's a complex, rapidly evolving landscape.
And absolutely. Driven by all these shifting consumer needs, technological leaps, but also grappling with these significant ethical, environmental, and economic challenges.
And understanding these dynamics for you listening, it directly impacts your daily choices, doesn't it?
It really does, and hopefully offers a deeper appreciation for the entire global food system that brings food to your table.
So, thinking ahead, what does this all mean for what your dinner plate might actually look like, say, a few years down the line?
That's the big question.
And how will our collective understanding of food truly shift, considering everything we've discussed? How do you think that balance between traditional meat consumption and these alternative proteins, how might that evolve in the next decade?
It's going to be fascinating to watch.
And what role will technology, consumer awareness, and global regulations play in really shaping the very future of food production and sustainability worldwide?
Something to think about.